Hello and welcome to this introduction to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. We're going to look at the basics of cryptocurrencies. We'll look at Bitcoin in a bit more detail, running through some of the key features of Bitcoin and the technology on which it is based. Do keep watching to the end of the video because we'll also run through some of the other cryptocurrencies that you can trade with Trading212. Hello, I'm Peter Martin with Trading212, and we add educational videos about trading like this to YouTube regularly. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get to know whenever we add fresh content. Well, cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin have been getting increasingly more exposure in the last few years, but the original proposal for Bitcoin was actually published in a white paper over 10 years ago in 2008 by a person or people that called themselves Satoshi Nakamoto. In this white paper, it used the term Bitcoin, it laid out how it all might work, proposing a type of electronic cash that wouldn't be controlled by any government. And it laid out the technology that might run the whole operation. So I thought we might begin by looking at cryptocurrencies in general and discussing this aspect of whether they actually are a type of electronic money or not. So cryptocurrencies are sometimes described as being digital assets or digital currency, but are they assets or currency? There's some debate as to whether they are more like an asset or more like money. Unlike fiat currency, which is what we basically call legal tender currency that a government has declared as being its legal money, they are not issued by a central bank. And therefore, the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, does not consider them as being currency or money because they're not issued by a central bank. The FCA tends to refer to them as exchange tokens, things that can be transferred, stored, or traded electronically. So that's the UK regulatory view on whether cryptocurrencies are money, cash, or whether they are assets. And trying to explain a bit more about what they are and how they work, it's probably instructive to look at the proto-cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin. So let's take a look at Bitcoin in a bit more detail now. So our Bitcoin basics. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency and it was designed to facilitate electronic transactions without relying on trust or a central authority. And at the heart of Bitcoin is a technology called blockchain technology. So let's run through what we mean by that. So blockchain is the technology that is really the foundation on which Bitcoin is built. It's at the heart of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, other coins that came after Bitcoin. And blockchain is a distributed ledger technology, which means that it is the ledger part. It's a record of transactions, a history of all the transactions that have gone on, who exchanged the tokens, when it happened, and then this information is distributed publicly amongst the users of the network. So the network users verify and maintain this ledger. So here we have basically a key facet of blockchain, and that it's not being verified and maintained. It's not being looked after by a central authority. No one person looks after it. The whole network of peers look after maintaining the record. So let's look at that visually. This is very simplified, but it's just to try and give you a loose visual idea of what we've been talking about. So this represents our network of users and they are managing everything. So just to reiterate that key idea we mentioned before, there is no central oversight. Everything is managed by this peer-to-peer network of users. And these users are actually called nodes. And there's just a few shown here, but there'll be lots and lots and lots of them all over the world, all working at once on verifying and maintaining the ledger. And the latest version of the ledger is represented here in the middle. So we have a transaction history here recorded in what are called blocks. And we add new blocks to the chain as time goes on. So this has been distributed out to everyone on the network and they're all working on the latest version of the ledger. And the whole purpose of this setup is to maintain the ledger. That is to keep a record of the transaction history, but without the need for any one body being in charge of it. It's totally decentralized by design. these users, these nodes, they're often called miners. And the reason they're called this is because as a miner expends effort in the hopes of finding gold, these users are expending their efforts in the form of CPU time and electricity in the hopes of getting a reward in the form of exchange tokens. And for the purposes of our example, let's say that we are talking about Bitcoin as our reward. And basically, they're all in a kind of computational race or competition with each other to solve a complex mathematical puzzle. Solving that puzzle is their proof of work. An algorithm called a cryptographic hash function is at the center of the maths that governs the security of the system. And this is where the cryptocurrency name comes from. Now, the first user to solve the puzzle, let's say it's this chap here, they get to add all the latest transactions to this latest block in the chain. Other users verify this information. Once they've verified it, a new block gets started. This guy gets his reward of his Bitcoin, then a new Bitcoin is added to the circulation, and everyone starts to work on trying to solve the latest puzzle here. Now, as we mentioned earlier, there's no need for trusting anyone else. The security comes from the difficulty of doing the work of solving the puzzle. So to try and go back, let's say, to this block here and try and meddle with the information that's in there, not only would you have to redo the proof of work for that block, but also for the block after. And this is unlikely if all the other users are all ahead of you working solely on this latest block. So just to reiterate, that is a very simplified version of what's going on. In reality, of course, there will be discrepancies. For example, not all nodes are actually the same. You will have purely mining nodes, some will be full blockchain nodes, but it was just to give you a broad idea of what's going on. So let's summarize some of the key aspects of Bitcoin. First of all, that one that we've already mentioned, that it is decentralized, doesn't answer to any one authority or body. Also, there are only a finite number of Bitcoin that can ever ultimately be mined. And we'll talk about this in a bit more detail in a future video. There are some similarities with cash. Bitcoin, of course, can be exchanged for goods. And just like with cash, your identity is anonymous. If you have a £10 note, there's no way to go back and find out who owned that £10 note in the past. And that's the same with Bitcoin. If you spend it, no one actually knows who you were. Where the big difference is with cash is the big swings in price that we've seen in Bitcoin in recent years. And this, of course, is what has driven its increasing exposure, the big gains in value it made in recent years, followed by big falls and then some more big gains. So let's take a look at this in a bit more detail by looking at a chart of Bitcoin over the last few years. So this is a weekly chart of Bitcoin giving us an overview going back over 3 years. And we can see the price wasn't doing too much in 2016. Once we get into 2017, though, you can see how rapidly the value of Bitcoin increased, exploding really. It was down beneath $1,000 in early 2017. By the end of that year, it hit almost 20,000 US dollars. Almost as rapidly it fell back again, though, in 2018. In 2019, once again, another huge ramp up in its value. So two things. First of all, we have to note how volatile it's been. That's worth bearing in mind just by itself. But also in terms of the asset versus money debate, it's difficult to use something as a method of payment, either if you are spending it or receiving it, if there's such big uncertainty over where its value might be, month to month, season to season, or sometimes even week to week. Now, of course, Bitcoin isn't the only cryptocurrency, although it is the most famous, and there are quite a few that you can trade with Trading 212. So let's take a look at a list of those now and run through that. So let's quickly run through the cryptocurrencies you can trade with Trading 212. The codes are on the left. BTC for Bitcoin, which we've already talked about. XRP and Ripple. Ripple is actually the name of the network and XRP is the token on the exchange, though people sometimes just call it Ripple anyway. Ether, which runs on the Ethereum network. Neo, Dash, XMR, Monero, LTC, Litecoin. I don't want to get into these in any detail in this video. We'll talk about them all in a bit more detail in a future video. For now, I would just say that these three at the bottom, Dash, Monero, and Litecoin, are much more similar to Bitcoin than the other three. You can almost think of these three as being almost like offshoots, basically, or derivatives of Bitcoin. They're very close in how they operate to Bitcoin. I hope you enjoyed this basic introduction to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. If you did, please take a moment to hit the thumbs up button and give us a like. And why not let us know what you think about Bitcoin or about other cryptocurrencies? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Send us a message in the comment section. We do read each one. But that's all for now from me, Peter Martin, and Trading212. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.